For some reason, this spooky season feels like it's become my own personal therapy session, where I confront movies and TV shows that traumatized me as a little kid, with the benefit of hindsight and a few extra decades of life experience. Kinda like tracking down your school bully who's now confined to a wheelchair after someone that the police were never able to identify cut the brake cables on his car and left him paralysed for life, and then beating the shit out of him with all 4 of your fully functional limbs. Threads was one such example of this, but I've got something even better for you today. A show so diabolical and terrifying that it plunged the entire UK into mass panic, resulted in a spate of PTSD cases, and to this day has never been broadcast again since it premiered on Halloween 32 years ago. I'm talking, of course, about the infamous TV special Ghostwatch.
The program you're about to watch is a unique live investigation of the supernatural. It contains material which some viewers may find to be disturbing.
The show is broadly similar to other paranormal reality TV shows like Most Haunted, where a team of ghost hunting specialists armed with cutting-edge 1992 equipment would investigate spooky goings-on reported in various places around the UK. In this case, a housing estate in London where a family claimed to be terrorised by a poltergeist that the children have nicknamed Pipes because of the noise he makes by messing with the heating system. The difference here is that Ghostwatch is meant to be a live event, with presenters back in the studio commenting on the events as they unfold, led by Michael Parkinson of all people, a switchboard hosting call-ins from members of the public, and various experts weighing in on what's happening. And at first it all seems to be pretty benign and harmless, just another one of those non-events where they either find nothing of interest, or the real culprit turns out to be something much more mundane and believable. And pretty soon that seems to be exactly what's happening when one of the girls living in the house gets busted knocking on the walls to fake the sounds of the ghost. That is, until the weirdness truly begins. Before you know it, the girl starts speaking like she's just swallowed a dump truck full of gravel, she suddenly has scratch marks all over her face, and the switchboard back at the studio starts getting calls from the public saying that they've spotted ghostly figures in the background of various shots. Clearly something much bigger and darker is at work here, and as the disturbances in the house become more violent and terrifying, and the sinister history of the property comes to light, the Ghostwatch crew and the presenters back in the studio begin to realise this isn't just some hoax to be exposed. They're witnessing a real-life poltergeist in action, disturbed by their unwanted intrusion, and now it's very, very angry.
What's that? Where are we going?
Of course, the stinger is that the whole thing was just a hoax, based loosely around the real-life case of the Enfield haunting, and made up to look like it was a live broadcast. And rewatching it now with the cynical eyes of someone who's experienced decades of found-footage horror movies, it's pretty obvious now where the strings are being pulled. But having watched this shit at the time as a 9-year-old kid, I can honestly say that I bought into it 100%, and it scared the absolute shit out of me at the time. And I wasn't the only one. By all accounts, the BBC switchboards were overwhelmed by concerned viewers who thought this shit was actually happening, and the newspapers in the days ahead documented what was rapidly turning into a national scandal. Damn man, did Sarah Green really get eaten by a ghost? Was Michael Parkinson dead? Did we just create a nationwide seance? It sounds pretty laughable today, but you have to remember, this was 1992 we're talking about here. It was a much more innocent time where people just kind of believed what they saw on TV, and the fact that this show was made by a trusted broadcaster like the BBC and starred well-known media personalities like Michael Parkinson, Craig Charles and Sarah Green gave it an air of legitimacy that nobody thought to question at the time. It also helped that nothing like this had ever really been done before, and certainly not in the UK. The internet with all its spoilers and previews didn't exist yet, and movies like the Blair Witch Project were almost a decade away, so in a lot of ways Ghostwatch was actually pretty far ahead of its time, and the good people of 1992 just weren't prepared for it. But the thing is, watching it even now in the cold and cynical light of 2024, it's actually a pretty well constructed horror story that makes the most of what was obviously a pretty modest budget to deliver a well-paced, slowly building sense of tension and dread. It all starts out pretty innocently. The presenters are in a jovial mood as they goof around the house with their funky early 90s technology, and you get the feeling of a fun Halloween party where nobody's taking things too seriously. But the more the team interacts with the family, the more you get a sense that something's genuinely wrong with these people. The kids start acting freaky as fuck, there's all kinds of disturbances and weird noises throughout the house, and you begin to question whether it's disturbed children faking the whole thing for attention, or whether there's something else at work here. The writers were smart enough to keep the poltergeist more or less hidden throughout the show, making his presence felt more by possessing other people than showing himself directly. But if you watch carefully, you'll see him pop up in the most random places, just this weird humanoid shape barely glimpsed in the shadows, or the reflection in a window, or even standing right there in a crowd of people, hidden in plain sight. And once you notice it, it creates this unsettling realization that he's actually been there the whole time, fucking around with the Ghostwatch crew, and nobody even noticed him. The cast all give pretty good performances for what they are, especially the family who come across like real people, pushed to breaking point by surreal experiences. Parkinson and Green were best known as presenters rather than actors at the time, but their slightly stiff mannerisms only heighten the feeling of professionals trying to keep the show moving along, even if they're freaking out inside. Like I say, Ghostwatch was very much a product of its time, and I guess part of the reason it's never been broadcast again is that everyone's in on the joke now, and it's a card that you can only really play once. But if you're looking for a nostalgic trip back to a show that threw the whole country into panic, not to mention a surprisingly effective little ghost story in its own right, then I strongly urge you to track down a copy of Ghostwatch and give it a try. You won't regret it. Anyway, round and round the garden, like a teddy bear.